Hi everybody, this is Dan Beringer, and this is actually my very first broadcast on Twitch, and I am playing a $6 Hyper Turbo Heads Up Sit and Go on America's Card Room. And right now I have Pocket Kings. I just min-raised pre-flop from the button, and I'm just going to c-bet here to about half pot. So as I go through this broadcast, I'm just going to walk you through my thought process on each hand, just kind of give you some insight into what I'm thinking. Okay, so my opponent, who I have played before, I made a note that he loves to limp trap from the button heads up. That's not really relevant here, but he went ahead and called my c-bet here on a queen 6-9-3 board, and I'm going to continue on the turn here for about half pot. I think he's got some queens, possibly some 7-8, some 10 jacks type draws, and I definitely want to charge him for those draws as well as get value from his value hands. Okay, he goes ahead and goes all in here from the button with 20 big blinds, which is a really deep stack in a hyper turbo heads up sit and go. So that's a little strange. I don't know whether or not I've seen him do that before, but it's definitely something to make note of. Okay, 6-8 is definitely a playable hand here at these blind levels and stack sizes, so I'm going to go ahead and limp the button and just see how he reacts to that. Okay, he checks. Now I'm fine with checking this back or betting it. Obviously we have middle pair with a weak kicker. I think we could really go either way here. I'm going to go ahead and check. Now, the queens are a lot better for our range than they are for his, so this is a spot we could bet. We are kind of effectively turning our hand into a bluff, but we also, at the same time, we do want to charge him for his draws and not let him get there easily if he's got 10 jack or if he has hearts or diamonds. We do want to put a bet in here. So even though effectively turned our hand into a bluff, there are times when you have value hands that make sense to turn into a bluff. Okay, he shoves again here, and we have jack 9, so we're obviously going to fold. This is the second time that he's just open shoved from the button, so now we're definitely going to be widening our calling range for his shoves. 6-9 is a little worse than 6-8, so that's a 2 gapper, so we'll go ahead and fold that. Again, he shoves his button. We're going to call 30 to win 120, so we're getting 4 to 1 odds here. I don't love 3-4 suited, don't get me wrong, but heads up, this is going to play well enough to warrant the call. Okay, this is a board that's going to definitely hit our range better than his, but I just think that when an aggressive opponent checks back this type of board that hits our range a bit better than it hits his, a lot of the times he doesn't have pure bluffs. He's going to have something like 9-8 or jack 9 or middle pair, something like that. So I don't think, I'm almost certain that if we were to lead the turn that he would call there. So I really don't want to be betting. And now we can see he bet 70, so we're obviously going to fold. Okay, blinds just went up. Now we definitely could go ahead and just go all in here. I think maybe I want to get a little tricky and limp the button and see if I can induce something from him. Okay, so he just checks behind, and maybe next time that he hasn't been kind of pouncing on those button limps, maybe we would either min raise or just probably just ship there pre-flop. Okay, so flop came Jack Queen Queen. Obviously, we're ahead of most of his range, but it's a spot where we definitely don't want to get check raised. So I think we've got a hand of value with showdown value, so we just want to check there. Okay, we river the low end of the straight, and he bets. So we've got possible full houses out there and better straight. So we're definitely not going to raise. We'll just go ahead and call. And we chop the pot. Okay, we have ace queen, so I'm hoping that he just ships right here. Let's see what he wants to do. And he goes all in, so obviously we're going to go ahead and snap call this. And we're up against queen 10, so we got to fade the jack. Oh, very nasty river card. Oh, that's like a kind of a punch to the gut right there. Okay, so actually this is kind of cool. In America's Card Room, after each sit and go is completed, they'll ask each player if they want a rematch. So this guy's a big fish, so I definitely would like to like another crack at him. Now, he open chips the button again, which he's been doing, and King 9 is obviously going to be most likely ahead of his shipping range here, but the issue here is that when it is ahead, it's not that far ahead, and when it's behind, it can be really far behind. And that's just, we don't want to add a lot of variance to our game here by calling those all-ins. In that type of situation, the first hand with King 9. All right, we pick up aces here on the button, so I'm going to go ahead and min raise. He hasn't been really aggressive when I've limped, so I think min raising probably makes the most sense. Okay, fairly dry board, 5-2-3. We have a gut shot to the straight. He didn't re-raise pre-flop, so he shouldn't have that many overpairs in his range. With that being said, I still don't want to give a free card if he has a 4 or a 6, something like that. We definitely don't want to let him draw cheaply. So go ahead and bet half the pot. And he just folds. Okay, we've got King 10 in the big blind. If he goes ahead and ships, same type of situation with the King 9, we're not gonna call off our stack with the blinds this low in this spot. All right, A6 on the button. We're just gonna min raise to 40. Okay, curiously, he limps his button, so we're definitely going to go ahead and just check here. We don't want to raise and inflate the pot against this type of a player, at least. Maybe against someone who was a lot tighter, and we knew we could take it away post-flop much more, we would do that, but not in this spot. So we have a backdoor flush draw and a gut shot straight draw, which in this spot, there's really no reason for us to call this bet out of position, especially against this type of aggressive player. If we thought that he'd give up on a lot of turns, and we could take it away, there might be some incentive to do that, but not against this player. Just kind of as a side note, so I originally deposited about $250 to America's Card Room about 2 weeks ago, and I've been playing exclusively the $6 heads-up Hyper Turbos. And right now I'm at about $350, so I'm have a decent win rate with these. And really the goal is to continue to play these. Then when I'm at $500 to move up to the $12 hypers. Okay, so he min raises here. We have King 7. I think folding is not what I would do typically, but against this type of opponent, it's going to be tough to play this post flop against him. But I think jamming, he's really only going to be calling with hands that have King 7 in fairly bad shape, or they, hands like Jack Queen or Jack 10 or something that he still has a fair amount of equity, 45% equity, and that's just really not a spot that we want to be in. And that might have been a little bit nitty, but especially with not a whole lot of time to think, with these shot clocks being about 10 to 15 seconds, I think I'm happy with the fold there. Okay, he limps his button. We have Queen 2 in the big blind, and the flop comes Ace King 8. So we're really never going to take any stab at this pot. I mean, this board hits his range much better than it does ours, so we'll simply just check fold. Okay, now I kind of got away from limping my button here. Nope. I was going to say I could try to limp it again and kind of see how he reacts, and he insta-shoved. So now let's kind of skew our button limps towards stronger hands, now that we know he's going to be aggressive towards those limps. Go ahead and check our option with 5-4. Now I think that if he did have a flush draw, that he definitely would have bet the flop. So I think this is a fairly safe spot for us to go ahead and bet. And if he calls, we can conclude that he probably has a flush draw, or maybe like a 9, but something that he'll typically be willing to fold to a bet. And he had a really strong hand on the flop, 2-pair. So that's something to make note of, the fact that he just checked his 2-pair and he's willing to check hands that strong that are still somewhat vulnerable. Okay, we have Ace 3 on the button, and the blinds just went up to 25-50, so this is a fairly simple all-in spot there. Okay, we've got Queen 5. We're pushing here to win 75, which is roughly about 20% of our chips, and I think this is a fairly decent spot to just shove. It's pretty close. I think something like Queen Deuce I wouldn't shove, and this is going to definitely be towards the bottom of my shoving range from the button. Wow, okay. So we've got Queen 4, and we just flopped trips, and he limped his button. And we know he's got a pretty wide button limping range. Oh, and he just did us a pretty big favor and just shipped it here. So with just 7-6. Oh, wow. And he got extremely lucky and hit a 6 in the turn. So that really sucks. That's now twice in a row that he's sucked out on us. The first game with the Ace Queen to queen 10, and now with a 6-7 to our queen 4 after we flop trips. Okay, so we're in the hole 0-2, but I'll definitely accept this player, like we said, is a really big fish, so we definitely want to continue to play hands against him. Okay, we'll go ahead and call 20 to win 80 here, so getting 4-1. And we flop an open-ended straight draw. So we're definitely going to be calling his bets. It's just whether or not we want to be betting ourselves. I think generally I don't expect to get check raised a lot here, so sometimes he'll call, but then sometimes we can just win the pot by betting the turn, and I think that's a good play here. All right, and we ship that pot. Jack 3 on the button. Against some weaker players, I probably would just limp the button here. Against this player, I tend to prefer to fold hands that are really in the weakest part of my range. And that's really just because there's going to be so many spots where he's going to be just giving us chips that there's not a real need to be limping a marginal hand like that from the button. Okay, and Jack 6 suited is definitely playable here from the big blind, so we'll go ahead and call his raise. All right, and we didn't connect here at all, and this is not a great spot or a great opponent for us to try to bluff raise this flop, so we'll just go ahead and fold. All right, blinds went up to 15-30, and I think I like just min raising here. I think before, when I started limping, I was kind of inducing some shoves from him, so I like just min raising king 10 here. I haven't talked much about my sizing. I think it kind of almost goes without saying when you're starting with 25 big blind stacks that anything more than a min raise is really risking too much of your stack, and you want to play post flop against these types of opponents. Okay, we raised king 2 and the flop came 3-3-8. Gets a typical opponent that played really straightforwardly. I'd probably just c-bet, but this guy is not a straightforward player, and I could definitely see him kind of getting frisky here and raising if I bet the flop. So I think it's just better to check here. Of course, now that we checked, this is definitely a card that hits his range better than it does ours, and if we were deeper stacked, I'd like to call here and kind of reevaluate in the river, because king high can often be good. Just with these stacks and how shallow they are and the hyper turbos, I'm not as incentivized to make this call. Okay, he goes with his signature move there and shoves the button. Although it makes a bit more sense now that we're actually, the blinds are up and have been up. Alright, we'll go ahead and limp our button and just see how he reacts to this. If he shoves, we'll go ahead and fold. I'm fine with that. Because really what that does is that allows us to then to do that with a really strong hand and then call off his jam. If we were never limping the button, and then all of a sudden we limped, maybe he wouldn't be jamming as often. Okay, we go ahead and flop top pair and a gut shot with 4-7 on the 3-5-7 board. And we're definitely going to go ahead and call his raise. Now, interesting card, ace comes on the turn, so this is something that he can definitely represent. Oh, and the river came a 6, so we just rivered the straight. I think typically when he checks that turn, he usually flopped something, so he has a 5 or a 7 typically. So that ace is something that scared him. Okay, he limps his button, and we're at 20-40 right now, so we've got 10 big blinds. And we check our option with queen 4 suited, and we're obviously just going to fold the ace 6-7 flop. Okay, with just about 10 big blinds and king 5, this is a spot where I like to start just shoving my buttons. I think too often, especially against this opponent, if we limp, he's going to be shoving, and we're not trying to induce a shove, obviously, with king 5 offsuit. Okay, now we have ace 7 offsuit from big blind, and we'll definitely be calling if he shoves, and expect to be, definitely be ahead of his range here. And he has jack 9, and he flops a flush draw. Can we fade it? And we do fade it. Nice. All right, so he's down to 70 chips, and obviously king high is going to be good enough for a shove here. He's only got about 2.5 big blinds. And he wakes up with an ace, but we hit a king, and he doesn't improve. All right, awesome. All right, the score is now 1 for me and 2 for him. Oh, and he declined. All right, so hope everybody enjoyed that, and that you could learn a few things. This is my first broadcast. I'll definitely be doing more, so check